This is Maurice Jones-Drew, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
You're listening to the What's Bruin Show, part of the What's Bruin Show network, with your hosts, Jake Berryfield and Mike Regalado, and occasionally some friends, talking all things UCLA sports. And now, it's time for the What's Bruin Show.
Well, hello, and welcome to What's Bruin. I'm your host, Jake Merrifield. I'm coming to you live outside of the Burbank Krispy Kreme Donuts, the Empire Center. On my way to Crypto.com or Staples Center to pick up my daughter from a Sabrina Carpenter concert at 10 o'clock at night. As the Bruins fall 19-31 or something like that, I don't know, I listened to the last few minutes in the radio. I pulled the old try to switch the momentum when that dumb backup quarterback Williams came into the ball game. You know, old trick used to be if you change the medium in which you're watching the game, like go from TV to radio or radio to TV or whatever, then you change the mojo. I tried, and it failed. And I apologize to you, the listeners. We couldn't summon the magic to bring this one home for the Bruins. It really is a bummer because I thought especially this wasted an absolute gem of a performance from the Bruin defense for the most part. There obviously was some trouble late. Bruins always struggle with running backup quarterbacks, I should say. Why do running backup quarterbacks, like always, just wreck shop? But it shouldn't have come down to that, right? Bruin mistakes on offense, missed opportunities, cost the Bruins big time in this game. They could have had control of this game through the third quarter. And I really had a feeling that the Bruins were going to go into the fourth quarter and really dominate. But the adjustments were made by Jed the Fish, putting in the backup quarterback. And the Bruins just couldn't cash in really at all. A couple of meaningless touchdowns at the end of the game. Didn't really matter. It still ended up being a 10-ish point game. 12 is really. And the Huskies win at home, become bowl eligible on their senior night. And the Bruins now have to win a couple to get to a bowl game, which is still entirely possible. But it's a What's Bruin Show on the What's Bruin Show Network. Thank you for your support. Look in the show notes for all the stuff at What's Bruin Show on Twitter. whatsbruinshow@gmail.com is the email. And since this is a legit CarCast, I'll just say to look down at your notes for the rest of it. 805-399-4WBS, second rate in Troy. We'll see you next week. Bastards. Go Nebraska at this point. But by the time I get home, I'm going to have to, edit this down and all that. So I'm probably, just FYI, your calls will make the show on Tuesday or whenever we do a show, I imagine, unless I go to sleep tonight and wake up in the morning and do your calls then. So I guess we'll find out. I don't know. We'll see how I feel. But thanks for listening, and I'll try to give you a decent postgame whilst eating a donut. Or two. Honestly, I'm having miscues today, just like the Bruins up there in Seattle. I got into the car thinking I could record the show with a proper microphone and my little DAT recorder because I have a go bag in the What's Bruin Kia Sportage. And I was all set up. I parked, put the batteries in, got the microphone plugged in and everything. And then I realized that I had taken the SD card out of the device, of the DAT recorder, the last time I used it. And so after a venting, blowing off steam, profanity-laced tirade to myself this evening in my car, one of those ones where it's like there's nobody here to listen, so you might just let it all fly. I let the day's frustration and the frustration of that Bruin game, really, I let it go a minute ago. But I'm feeling much better now. But I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of that on the plane ride home for the Bruins. They had played better on the road than at home this whole season, And even when things weren't going their way, they were still kind of battling towards the end. And you had that tonight too. After Jed the Fish scores that dickish touchdown at the end to blow it wide open, the Bruins come down the field and score a spike touchdown of their own. Like I said, neither of those TDs really mattered. And still, one of the hallmarks of this team is they fight. But unfortunately, one of the other hallmarks of this team is they forgot about Dre. Over and over and over again. And penalties, once again, lead to ruin for this team. I'm not going to do a full summary of the game because I have to kind of stare at my notes on my cell phone because I don't have my DAT recorder to record into, which is what the original plan was. But just to briefly kind of go over how the game went, it really started off with a field position battle, and UCLA had the opportunity to win that battle a couple times, but in the end, Washington's the first one to scratch. They get the 7-0 lead because of some missed opportunities by the Bruins, and then two just absolutely dreadful punts, inexplicably dreadful punts that put Washington into positive field position. And so right from the get-go, I thought UCLA was playing better than Washington and kind of filling each other out with the opening jab stages of the first quarter, but Washington's the one who ends up on top. The first drive, they pass. Garbers probably could have converted it with a run, the third down, but he doesn't, so they punt. It's 3-and-out. Washington's a 3-and-out. And then UCLA has a great play down the sideline on a third down to Matavao, but of course, the first edition of home cooking in this game, I thought the Bruins had some bad calls go against them. I'm hoping that the Bruins will get some calls finally at the Rose Bowl this next week. Not to complain about the refs. It wasn't the refs' fault, but the refs didn't help in this game. But the fact that they called him out of bounds when he was like maybe a fingernail of his toe or the side of his foot is out, or the heel of his foot is out, refs should have never made that goddamn call. And two of them made it all at once. But I guess it must have been more convincing live. But anyways, that definitely cost the Bruins a chance to have some points. And they keep playing field position throughout. And finally, when UCLA drops a 17-yard punt, oh my God, Washington gets into scoring position with a screen, and then they run in for a touchdown, and now it's 7-0. As you get later into the half, you had that sequence where Garbers gets stripped on the fumble. I don't think that was his fault. The Washington defensive line was kind of blowing up the interior of the UCLA offensive line the whole game, almost as bad as UCLA was doing that to Washington. And then the next big play goes out of the Bruins' favor. Forgetting about Dre, my guy, Femi Aladejo, gets a roughing the passer on a big interception, which then moments later leads to a Washington score, and that really puts the Bruins kind of back on the scoreboard. And then to UCLA's credit, they finally get back into the action and get to a reasonable score on the scoreboard going into the half. And UCLA would win the middle eight in this game, which put them in position, I thought, to really start to dominate the game in the middle of the third and the fourth quarter. But that's not the way it turned out, obviously. And I really had a feeling that they gave the Dogs a little bit too much, too many missed opportunities, cost them points. But I thought they were still playing well enough and in good enough position to take control of the game. And they come out in the third quarter, and that's exactly what they do. They get an interception. They're in perfect position to score and setting up with a field goal. I think earlier I said it was 17-10. It wasn't. But now it's 13-14 in the third quarter. And UCLA forces another turnover. Medrano with a big INT. UCLA is ready to take the lead in this game. This is the moment. And it all kind of changes when Peterson, normally sure-handed, has the ball stripped, gives the ball back to the Huskies. They put in a different quarterback, and the entire game was kind of different from that point forward. They do a good job with them on the first drive, only forcing a field goal, though. Now it's 17-13, late in the third quarter. And then the bottom falls out for the Bruin offense, and the defense gives up a long drive, and that's kind of the end of the story. Bruins miss a field goal in there as well. So there are a lot of storylines coming into this game. Some of them were proven right. Some of them were not. Washington's totally tough place to play. Absolutely one of the toughest, especially recently. Dogs played well there in the last couple of years. Obviously, last year they did. They went to the playoff. But this was their 20th win in a row up there. But it's certainly one I thought the Bruins, this was more the Bruins botching things than Washington really dominating. They just happened to finish well. Homecoming for Garbers and Ikaika Malloy. They said that on the broadcast a million times. I don't know, how meaningful that was. I don't think Garbers played horribly. He certainly didn't have his best game, but he didn't play horribly either. The mistakes really were from the rest of the offense as opposed to him. And I thought he was a gamer all the way through. Nothing to be ashamed of. After that terrific performance against Iowa on the ground, I was very optimistic that the Bruins could really take control of this game, given how much Washington had struggled against the run. That turned out to be absolutely a mirage, apparently, from last week, because the Bruins could not run the ball very effectively all night. Washington really ganged up on them and loaded it up. And the success the Bruins did have was through the air. It's a shame they couldn't pass block a little bit better. But they certainly had a couple moments running the ball, but it was much more like the beginning of the year than the end of the year, with the productive yards mainly coming from Ethan Garber's scrambles. So that was definitely a problem. And hopefully they can get that sorted out against SC. Who knows? They had more offensive linemen go down, as the broadcast told you, a million freaking times. Once Jeffers left there, they're down to their fourth starting tackle and yada, yada, yada. I don't know. It wasn't really a tackle problem. It was an interior line problem. So I don't know what the Washington just had a little more for them than they could handle on the interior. And I thought that whoever was in there playing left tackle played at least as well as any of the other guys. And I think they had fewer penalties too. Too many false starts this game. Once again, forgetting about Dre. Another storyline was, would the Bruins be able to manufacture pressure like they have the last few weeks? And I don't have the TFL stats in front of me and the sack stats. My apologies. Now that I'm driving down towards Staples. But just from the eyeball test, you watch this defense play, and for most of the game, they were playing fast and hard and hitting hard, and they were getting the backfield. They were getting TFLs. The 1 4th down stop they had was excellent. Put the offense in position to score. Not their fault the offense couldn't come through. I remember if they got a field goal out of that drive or not. I was really hoping that UCLA would dominate on both sides of the ball in the trenches this game, and they absolutely did on defense until the backup quarterback came in and kind of threw them for a loop, different sort of look. But UCLA's offensive line, as I just said, got more than they could handle from the Washington defense, which I think was less expected by me, especially how the Bruins have been playing recently. But I think the main storyline that really affected the game was, we had been talking about this UCLA offense, and Mike was trying to pitch me a hot take on Tuesday about Eric Bieniemy being up for a coordinator of the year job, and I was like, yeah, hold the phone. It's an offense only averaging 24 points a game. But for, a month in a row, they had put together a relatively consistent performance, putting up around 20 points a game. And guess what? They landed on, 19 tonight, but, the last touchdown was completely meaningless. While the game was a game, they managed to put up 13. And they missed so many opportunities in this game. Just off the top of my head, Garbers misses Titus on that touchdown early in the game, which cost them 4 points. They end up kicking a field goal on that drive. They have 2 turnovers in the red zone, which is a -3 each, and really could have been as much as a -14 each, right? Somewhere between 6 and 14 points they left on the board there with turnovers in the red zone. And then they missed a field goal too, which is not on the offense, somewhere on the special teams, but that's another 3 points. But you're looking at, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20 points that they cost themselves because they forgot about Dre and whatnot. So the storyline of the continuing improvement of the Bruin offense is kaput, at least for now. Let's hope they have a better effort in the last 2 games. But I will say this, is that this offense was not failing in the same ways in which it failed in the first part of the season. And so it doesn't have me nearly as despondent. I'm just bummed because it was missed opportunities in the normal sense of a normal football game. They had a bad game on the road up in Washington on a cold night, and it killed their rally for now, for the season. But what I will say in Bieniemy's favor and in this offense's favor is it wasn't completely non-functional like it was in games, 1 through 6 or whatever. 1 through 5, I guess. And really those games the Indiana game, the Oregon game, and the, not Penn State, most of LSU, half of LSU. But the net result is still a game in which the offense has to shoulder the blame for this freaking loss. And that's a big bummer. And they have 2 more games left to make a good impression. But it's like, when this offense is humming at scoring 24 points, I mean, that's not going to get it done. Right? That's not what you want. And when it absolutely implodes, you're talking 10 to 13 points. That's not going to be great. All right, I have to negotiate Staples Center at this point. Driving down the 5 just past Dodger Stadium. So I'll come back probably on my big boy mics and finish this off at some point. So thank you. I'm going to put on a depressing Lana Del Rey album for the rest of my drive, pout a little bit, and finish this off later tonight.
Do you think girls like failures? Girls want someone with proven success. Have you won any awards? Like a Congressional Medal of Honor? Or a Nobel Peace Prize? What are your real estate holdings? Do you have a diversified portfolio?
I lost my mojo.
Your entire life has prepared you to publicly fail. You're just failing to see that right now.
The story of
UCLA football
was the mass proliferation of disillusionment and apathy.
Where is the energy and excitement coming from with UCLA football?
Really, UCLA was a lot worse than I thought.
It doesn't feel like there's any excitement for UCLA football.
I don't think anybody cares about UCLA football.
That was just dreadful offensive football.
All right, I'm back. I made it down to Crypto or Staples, picked up the girls. And after a nice long drive home, I'm sitting in the What's Bruin studios once again. And I have a glass of Broken Barrel 115, about to take straight to the neck. So I can finish off this podcast for you guys. Now I have the stats in front of me. It kind of confirms to a degree what I was saying about the UCLA offense not looking the same or struggling the same as it did earlier in the year, where they just couldn't get anything done at all. In this case, they were over 50% on third downs, 10 for 19. In this case, they were 9.9 yards per completion. It was like the big problem was the rushing, the 1.6 yards per rush. But they really, that's other than the last game against Iowa, that's not like that was unusual. It's funny they have a stat that's 4 for 5 in the red zone, but that's an absolute lie, compared to how they actually did in the red zone. I guess they must have been just outside the 20 or whatever for one of those turnovers. But they outpossessed Washington 33 to 27. They, like I said, over 50% on third downs. They outgained Washington. They had more first downs than Washington. And if you, like I said, you talk about them versus the Washington before they, benched the quarterback, it was way more out of whack than that even, right? And I know some of these yards came on the garbage last drive, so that kind of washes there, I suppose. But I thought the enemy passed a little too much early, and then when he tried to get the running game going, it just wasn't there. So then it turned out, there were so many drives that started with, a couple clouds of dust, and all of a sudden it's 3rd and 8, and then Garbers or would make something happen, and they ended up converting. So I think really, other than his fumble, which I still don't think was his fault, really, he actually played pretty well, and it's just the other guys around him really didn't do him any favors in this game. Just thinking about all the different plays he made to keep drives going, but he had to make a bunch of third down conversions. But the big glaring thing from the stat sheet is the Bruins average like 4 yards a play for the entire game, which is just absolutely ridiculous. So they just couldn't get anything consistent going, and they'd have to, it's kind of herky-jerky a lot of the game. But, it's shockingly or, sadly still better than it was the first few games of the season. So, anywho, they lose the game, and, that's really all that matters at this point. So I'll turn over to the Ballers now, and on a night when the Bruins completely, as we talked about, they don't put up enough points to do anything. I'd actually been keeping like a running list of baller players, and there were a couple on offense, but I'm not going to. We're not going to have any offensive ballers today in a day when the Bruin offense pretty much loses the game for the Bruins. But as far as the defense goes,
straight baller.
Even though at the end they had a rough go of it, there were some huge plays for the Bruins. mainly, we'll just say, we'll leave it with the, Jay Toya dominated the game.
He's just a baller, man.
Absolutely. Once again, another week in a row. And, the broadcasters couldn't stop saying his name. They were a little repetitive, but still the message is there. Femi had that horrible personal foul, but he also had an amazing stop on a 4th and 1.
Just a baller, man.
Just looked great on that one. And Keem Madrano, a tip ball and an intercepted ball.
Straight baller.
That was absolutely fantastic. And then, Captain America, Schlesinger had 72 tackles in this game.
He's just a
straight baller.
Just straight baller. I mean, and Josh Lewin on the radio broadcast, when I switched up how I was listening, how I was watching the game, said a number of times, oh, this guy should be the favorite for the Butkus Award now. And, I don't know if they'll actually give him the love that he deserves for it, but you watch him on the field, and he deserves all the love he gets. So that would be a fun story for the season if he actually finished that way. But an unbelievable effort from that dude. He was seemingly there on every single play. And just absolutely terrific. Bruin defense really had one really bad drive today, and it happened to be the one that got the backup quarterback Williams rolling, and they ended up scoring the kind of the definitive touchdown there at the end. But other than that, man, this defense played very well, and I'm not concerned about them next week against SC. I think they'll give SC every bit they can handle. It's just, will the offense be able to put the Bruins into a position, cash in on some points, and then also not put the defense behind the 8 ball too many times in the game, because that's really where we went afoul tonight, as usual. You look back to the earlier in the year when the defense had these performances where it looked okay, but the stat sheet was really, really ugly. The stat sheet wasn't ugly in this game, but there were moments when the Bruin offense put the defense into a bad spot. Most notably at the very beginning of the game, when they're playing the field position, and the Bruins special teams put them, had the 2 bad punts, and they couldn't cash in, and then all of a sudden the Bruins are playing on a very, very short field. Washington scores his first touchdown, and there was some other plays like that as well. But we don't want to see that again. But we did get one call tonight, I think, so far. Anything else I'll play on the show on Tuesday, but play that voicemail. If you guys have anything to say, call 805-399-4WBS. But we'll play this, and then we'll get on to what we think about the rest of the season.
Well, a very winnable game.
That's Dez.
Lost because they decided to make their feet Swiss cheese. The false start, the constant bad penalties. It's his first year. It is what it is. But this was a very winnable game. But one thing I don't understand in the beginning of the game is where was Logan Loya the entire first half? It seemed like he wasn't even targeted or in the game. And why are we, even though they had 5 in the box, if the run is not working one way, try another way. Now, I'm listening to the broadcast, so I couldn't really see much until the end. And at the end, I basically gave up and watched the Tyson fight, which was whatever. But this was a winnable game. I don't get how this game played out the way it did. Even if Bugatti made, I guess he missed 2, but even if he made the 2 that he
missed one, does
still lose. But it is what it is. Could have done better. We didn't. Go Bruins.
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with your assessment, Des. As far as the run game goes, they did try to attack in a variety of ways. They're under center, trying to do their zone game that way. They, had a little bit of razzle-dazzle in there a couple times, and then they tried the stuff they've been doing pretty much the whole year, and they were not getting, at the point of attack and any of these plays, they weren't getting any sort of surge, and, Harden or Jones was getting swallowed up. They're getting hit at the line of scrimmage, basically, and if they fell forward for a yard or two, that was about as good as they could do. I don't blame this on the backs in this game. It was, this is one of the games where really the blocking and how bad it was in the middle of the line. This is one where I'll definitely say, hey, the offensive line definitely underperformed in this game, and that might be because of the depleting personnel, or whatever. But the guys that had been playing pretty well the last 3 games had a rough go of it today. And like I said, it was mostly that interior, which kind of sucks. You were hoping that they don't have a repeat performance next week or the week after, and I think there's a good chance that they don't, because I don't think that USC has anybody like that, like the Washington guys have on their offensive line. I mean, on their defensive line. And certainly I don't think SC has anything like what I would have either. So certainly they'll be motivated. They'll be at home. They got to win 2 to go to a bowl game. I think that's probably a good rallying cry. Not you need a rallying cry to beat SC, but I guess, transitioning into what the future prospects are, you got 2 games to win 2 games and then go to a lower tier bowl game. Huzzah, hooray. I think that, no matter how down you are on the Bruins this year, for them to get to a bowl game this year would be an accomplishment for this team, both from preseason expectations, around the country, as well as just the hole they dug themselves. It would be a nice story. So finishing on a, whatever that would be, 5-1 back half of the season and getting to a bowl game would certainly be a wonderful story, as opposed to not making a bowl game. Still, though, I think even if they split these games, well, at this point, no, I don't think that's true. I think they have to win both these games to have a positive feeling heading out of the season, because if you lose to SC, then that's what, at least a third of the fan base, all they care about, when I say fan base, I'm using that loosely. I'm talking about the people who just kind of barely keep tabs on the program. But that's a lot of the talk about the program throughout the year, is people just going, oh, did we beat SC or did we not beat SC? So they can talk crap to their coworkers or whatever. You have to beat SC in this particular year to have a positive feeling about the season. It's not like the 10-2 year with Maurice Jones-Drew, where it's like, you're going up against an all-time great SC team. This is not that. This is a team that the Bruins should beat at this point, looking at how both teams have played throughout the season. There really is no excuse for the Bruins to lose to this team, even though the Bruins are, just 4-6 or whatever. That's something that needs to get done. And so if you say, well, they have to beat the SC team to have a chance at a feel good for the season, I think, then if they were to beat SC, you certainly don't want to lose to the Bulldogs of Fresno State. And if you beat SC, you don't want to finish with a loss to the Bulldogs either. So honestly, I think, really to keep the momentum that you kind of spun up with your little 3-game winning streak, the nice wins on the road, Rutgers, Nebraska, and then the Iowa win at the Rose Bowl, the Bruins need to finish with 2 wins at the Rose Bowl. Give the Rose Bowl fans something to cheer about for those games. You're going to have a packed house for the SC game, even though it's at that dreadful 7:30 time. I wouldn't be surprised if the Fresno State game is late as well, probably more sparsely attended. But you never know. If they get a win over SC, might bring some more people out there. But the bottom line is, now the Bruins need to get to a bowl game, I think, to keep the positive buzz going. Whether that's a good or a fair thing or not, that's just probably where we're at. So, all right, this is a pretty low energy pod for me, and I apologize, in advance, or I apologize for this very poor effort. My friends, I've been super busy. I had to cancel my trip to Nashville. I should have been in Nashville right now for the LA Grizzlies League meeting for the National Public Safety Football League, but I couldn't go because I had some work commitments that were pulling me a little harder, and it's just been, like I said, it's been a little bit of a grind. This Bruin season, other than the last 3 weeks, has been a little bit of a grind too. And so watching the game, I really felt like the Bruins had this one. And then when they let it go, when the rope slipped from their hands, I have to admit I am a little deflated by this one. Although my feeling about this particular team this year is like, I don't know. I don't even have to say by what factor. It's infinitely more positive than it was after Indiana and after Oregon and after Penn State even, right? I mean, Minnesota too. It's much more. I'm much more bullish on the Bruins for 2024 and how they can finish the season than I ever thought I would have been pretty much through the whole season up until the last couple of weeks. So sorry about the mopey attitude, but those are some some outside of football factors going on there. But we do have a fun week for you next week, hopefully, leading into the Crosstown Showdown. Hoping to get at least 1 or 2 episodes with Raina Troy involved. Mike, obviously, will be back next week for whatever we end up doing. The show may end up coming to you a day later, though, but hopefully not $1 short. But we'll just have to wait and see what pops into your feed. I am super sad I didn't get a hold of William Henry Shirley III before this loss, because I have a feeling he'll be Mr. Negative Nelly again if I do try to get a hold of him. So I kind of have to wait until they beat SC, hopefully, to get something useful out of that pessimistic son of a bitch. But whatever. It is what it is. All right, guys, thank you so much. I don't know even how long this is going to be after I edit what I got to edit. It's probably much shorter than what I've been putting forth this year. But, like I said, for all those factors, it is what it is. And thank you so much. And thanks for listening. And go on YouTube and subscribe and all these things. Help us out. Let's get to the end of the football season. Let's get to a bowl game, right? And then we'll go from there. We'll see how we go. So the Bruins lose up in Washington. Congratulations to my buddy Jeff Waters and his son Peyton Waters, who's on the team, defensive back. I didn't hear his name called throughout the game. I did get in the car at the end, so maybe I missed him at the end there, but I think he's been playing some special teams and he's gone on the field during a little bit of defense. One of Birmingham High School's finest. But congratulations to them as the Huskies take down the Bruins 31-19 on their senior night. They finished their senior careers off in style and are going to a bowl game. And let's hope the Bruins can follow suit and catch them in the win column, because the Huskies are not going to win next week against Oregon. Probably not. So, anyway. Guys, thanks for listening. And until next time, go Bruins.
Good evening.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
That was the What's Bruin Show.
Try us tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's got to be in or out, Mom. In or out. Well, I need the door closed.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Dude, Rob, we play some ball on the West Coast.
The final word is boob.